There were a few aimless minutes between the parade and the announcement, so friends and family gathered round the girls to offer congratulations and crossed fingers. The little groups that formed looked like very peculiar flowers, Barbara thought. The petals were all dark brown and beige because it was a cold grey day and everyone in the audience at the South Shore Baths was wearing a raincoat. But right in the middle of each drab clump was a girl in a brightly coloured bathing suit, beaming and shivering with nerves and cold. As the raincoats crowded round the girls, Barbara began to work on the idea that they looked more like licorice all sorts, but turned inside out, with the licorice on the outside and the lurid sugary coconut in the middle. Barbara hadn't invited any friends, and her father was refusing to come over and join her, so she was stuck on her own. He was just sat there in a deck chair pretending to read the Daily Express. The two of them wouldn't have made much of a licorice all sort, but even so, she would have appreciated the company. In the end, she went over to him. Leaving the rest of the girls behind made her feel half naked and awkward, rather than glamorous and poised, and she had to walk past a lot of wolf-whistling spectators. When she reached her father's spot at the shallow end, she was probably fiercer than she wanted to be. "What are you doing, Dad?" she hissed. The people sitting near him, bored, middle-aged holidaymakers, suddenly went rigid with excitement. One of the girls, right in front of them, telling her father off. "Oh, hello, love. Why wouldn't you come and see me?" He stared at her stupidly as if she'd asked him to name the president of Timbuktu. "Didn't you see what everyone else was doing?" "I did, but it didn't seem right, not for me." "Well, what makes you so different?" "Well, a single man running amok in the middle of a lot of pretty girls wearing not very much, I'd get locked up." "Well, would you have to run amok?" Barbara asked. "Couldn't you just stand there talking to your daughter?" "Well, people would think I was running amok anyway," he said sadly.
There is a wonderful anthology of poems about characters that Hugo Williams put together, but mostly poets don't seem to busy themselves thinking about characters so much, but they do obsess about language. And then you said in another one of your columns that you're not particularly interested in language. You said, or rather, I'm interested in what language can do for me, and I spend many hours each day trying to ensure that my prose is as simple as it can possibly be, but I do not wish to produce prose that draws attention to itself rather than the world it describes. So on the one hand, there's these jokes about language and also not wanting to take oneself too seriously and take writing too seriously, which has a very winning, I think, character. It's a very winning character of your style. But at the same time, some of your characters do think about, I mean, to me, some of my favorite moments are when they pause to think about what they've just said.
Right.
So in A Long Way Down, one of the characters says, "And what I've done is I'd pissed my life away, literally." Well, okay, not literally. I hadn't, turned my life into urine and stored it in, stored it in my, stored it in my bladder and so on and so forth. But I felt as if I'd pissed my life away in the same way you can piss money away. Or this wonderful thing from Juliet Naked when she says the female character has been in an email correspondence with a rock star, and she says there was definitely a sad sack fantasy element to it. She couldn't deny that. Tucker had mentioned in his email that he was single again, so ... She didn't need to spell it out, and then in parenthesis, she wanted to be honest with herself, but honesty didn't mean having to complete every sentence, not when the missing subordinate clause suggested so much emptiness. So anyway, are there other moments like that? So I was just curious about...
Well, I mean, there's been a debate recently. Who was it who said that somebody, was it here, who said that she felt that what defined literary fiction was a commitment to language. And I never know if I'm a literary writer or not. I don't know if it's even of any interest to talk about it. But I understand completely what she means when she says that there is a certain kind of writer who has a commitment to language and wants a reader to appreciate the language and to become involved in the language. And that isn't what I'm interested in doing. And I don't...
Of course, like 3 people read poetry, whereas, I mean,
yes,
that's one of the differences.
Well, I do want to be read. I do want people to read and enjoy. I don't want people to feel that they're bogged down in a book.
You started out as a school teacher.
Yes.
Is there anything about having to account for yourself, account for what you have to teach to children that you think, to school children, that had any kind of influence on your attitude towards no bullshit,
yes.
No pretension, just telling it straight?
Well, when I was teaching English, then you had this dream of a kind of book that you wanted to teach, which was that the characters had a sort of bottomlessly difficult problems, and yet they were comprehensible by anybody. And that seemed to me the dream of literature, and why Of Mice and Men continues to be taught decade after decade after decade, because there isn't a single kid who can't understand what the problems of those characters are, and yet there isn't a single kid stupid enough not to understand. There isn't a single kid smart enough to solve the problems. And that seems to me what a certain kind of literature should be pitching for all the time, that the cleverness is in the complication of the situation and not in the complication of the language.